Well, I was thinking this morning, I left Unity Village here after 26 years, and then I went out to the field ministry, my first one being in West Palm, and that was followed by Miami, and spent 21 years there. So I think it's been it's been at least 20 Easter, Palm Sunday, Holy Week type messages that I've delivered. And I'm going to be perfectly honest because I always feel like I can be very honest and real with you. A lot of the aspects of Christian holidays, most notably Christmas and Easter, have lost some of their appeal for me because I've come to believe that it's very easy to get caught up in the external experience. And it's beautiful, it's wonderful. We have an Easter egg hunt, that's great, you know. We have rabbits on the Country Club Plaza that have been there longer than I've been alive. We have many great things going on outside of us during these holidays. But I really believe that if you and I want to celebrate what this important date is all about, we have to go beyond the external to the true message of what this guy was trying to bring to us 2,000 plus years ago. And I think if he was in the room today, he wouldn't really be so concerned about how much we were acknowledging him as he would how much we were acknowledging what he brought to us in terms of teaching and understanding and how we can live our lives. So that's what this morning is going to be about for me, and I hope it brings greater meaning, greater depth to whatever your Easter celebration might be. I think it's the reason for the season. It's more than an opportunity to celebrate Jesus. It is an opportunity to emulate that which we celebrate. And I'm going to say that again because if you don't hear anything else that I share with you today, this is it, just a few words. Emulate the life of the one that we celebrate. And I really believe that Jesus would be and is most pleased if we're able to do that, to the best of our ability. You say, well, I'm not Jesus Christ. And you know, if you've been in Unity very long, we're not saying we're all Jesus, but we are all saying that we are divine creations. And this is an opportunity this coming week for us to step up to that plate and accept that identity for ourselves. Many of us perhaps for the first time, and really say, I am everything that he was because we are one. There's a fellow just down the road here that I had never heard of until I came across this quotation of his on Facebook. He's the founder and lead pastor of the Word of Life Church in St. Joseph, Missouri. So he's not far down the street here. But listen to these words because they really captured me. It is not the task of the church to make America great again. The contemporary task of the church is to make Christianity countercultural again. Woo. And once we untether Jesus from the interest of any empire, we begin to see just how radical his ideas were and are. Enemies, love them. That's all you have to do if you want to emulate the one you celebrate. Just love your enemies. Walk in the park, piece of cake, right? Just love your enemies. Violence, renounce it. Money, share it. Foreigners, welcome them. Sinners, forgive them. These are the kind of radical ideas that will always be opposed by the principalities and powers, but which the followers of Jesus are called to embrace, announce, and enact. I don't know this guy, but I love him. And I think we might want to get him here at Unity Village Chapel one of these days because, man, those are powerful words. And I think one of the reasons I love them so much is because I have always been more than a little bit rebellious. And sometimes that has served me very well, and sometimes it's gotten me knee-deep in trouble. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Would you? And I say that because you can't hide it from me. I know I'm sitting in a room filled with a pack of rebels. I know that you have rebelled against much of what was told to you by perhaps well-meaning but inaccurate authorities, and that you're in a journey right now to liberate yourself from anything that is not true and live in integrity with what is true. To understand that you are in good company, i.e. Jesus Christ, because he was probably the chief rebel that ever wandered around on this planet as far as I'm concerned, crazy, rebellious, challenging ideas that he presented. In order to appreciate that, we have to move beyond the religion that we created about Jesus Christ and start to live in the religion or the belief system of Jesus Christ. It's very easy, and I've said this before to you, to get down on your knees and worship Jesus. I mean, I'm not saying it isn't admirable or whatever, but it's easy to do. It's much more challenging to follow him. It's much more challenging to do what Brian was telling us to do. Love an enemy. Just love one enemy before you leave the planet. Take the worst one you can find and just make it your practice to love them. Not easy to do, but it's possible. And in so doing, you become more of who you truly are. Another one of my favorite, now Brian's a relatively recent favorite author of mine, or speaker, but there's another one, Jim Palmer. Some of you may be familiar with Jim. Yeah, he's the founder of the Center for Non-Religious Spirituality. And he writes, he was at one time, he was a fundamentalist pastor who spoke in front of very large crowds, huge. He was a mega church pastor, and he had his own revelation where he began to understand this path of Jesus and this concept of Christianity from a little different perspective. And this is what he says. I don't think of Jesus as a religion or somebody to be worshiped. I do not think that Jesus was the only one who had a deep spiritual understanding or the only one who can inspire a life of goodness, human solidarity, and compassion. I believe the significance of Jesus was the courage and convictions of his life, not the theological mythologies of his death. And I believe if Jesus, well, I do believe that the consciousness is with us right now in this room. And I can hear it applauding, saying, by all means, look at how I lived my life, as opposed to creating these concepts and ideals that require us to worship. My understanding of the religion of Jesus Christ is very simple, and it's all found within a few pages in the Sermon on the Mount in the book of Matthew. It starts with developing a deeply personal relationship with God, or with whatever you consider the indwelling spirit to be of your nature. And we do this by praying privately. That is, we don't make a show of our prayers. We make prayer a very internal, quiet activity where we're communing and developing. You know, I often say, if you had a friend that wanted to call you up and ask for your help only when they needed help, I need money, I need a place to stay. After a while, if that was the only request you ever got, you'd probably get a little tired of that. You'd be saying, hey, the only reason this person calls me is to get something. Well, think about your relationship with God. When do you go to God? We all go to God when there's trouble in the house. But do we go to God just for the sake of hanging out and being in the presence? We have friends that just want to be in our company. So this is a friendship that we're developing. And finally, to give invisibly. If you really want to master the art of giving from the perspective of Jesus Christ, give anonymously as often as you possibly can, without any thought of anybody saying anything like thank you or appreciate that. That's not why you do it. You do it because it is your nature as a Christed being to give and give generously whenever you can, because you recognize that that's plugging yourself into the current and the flow of life. He said to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, to care for the ailing, to welcome the woeful. That is to show up, serve, and support. And it's not just others. That's important. We want to serve one another, but it's hard to serve anybody anything you don't have. So you have to begin by feeding the hungry nature that's dwelling within you, by clothing yourself with whatever you need to provide for your protection, for your well-being, to care for yourself, and to welcome yourself in woeful moments. And in doing that, you then set yourself up, you charge yourself so that you can go out into the world and make a more positive difference because you've done the work of caring for yourself. And finally, to release condemnation. No problem, right? Anybody had a condemnatory thought in the past week? Anybody had a condemnatory thought in the past 24 hours? I have, I have them from time to time. So it's not like I'm going to set myself up and say I'm beyond all that. That stuff still goes on in my mind, but I don't give it the attention and the energy that I used to. I do everything I can to be aware of condemnatory judgment when it shows up in my head and when I'm projecting it outward. I do my best to acquit the guilty, to love the enemies, to pray for the persecutors. All of these are the content of the life that Jesus Christ was living and that he was encouraging us to participate in. Now, a lot of you are probably familiar with the work of Neil Donald Walsh in his series of books on conversations with God. And I do have conversations with God. You ever have conversations with God? Great. Build that relationship, build that rapport. I also have conversations with Jesus. Not as many people have conversations with Jesus. I'm not really talking about face-to-face with the man himself. I'm talking about the consciousness of Jesus, the spirit of this man. And I thought you'd like to know that I got some important information from him just this past week that I wanted to share with you this morning. So, did that guy just stand up there and say he had a conversation with Jesus Christ and he's now going to be benevolent enough to share that with all of us? Take it or leave it. When I come here, I never have attachment to whether you accept what I'm telling you or not. I'm not preoccupied with your believing with what I believe. I am preoccupied with your getting as much clarity as possible on what you really do believe, and then living to the best of your ability in integrity with it, whatever it may be, because I think the world needs integrity more than it needs conversion to any belief system. So here's what Jesus told me. Are you ready? He said, hey man, I don't give a hoot whether you recognize my birth, my life, or my death. I don't care whether you believe that I was born of a virgin or not. I don't care whether you believe that I died to pay for your careless, sinful lack of responsibility. He didn't care. Well, that's rather countercultural to the church that we know. They care very much, and I'm not making any judgments here. Everybody has the path, and they're walking the path that they need to walk. But he said, there's really only one thing I want from you, and that is for you to have an experience of unconditional peace, love, and joy. That's it. That's all Jesus wants. That's all Jesus, I believe, wants for you. But you have to determine this for yourself. What is it that this ideal of yourself calls upon you to enact in your day-to-day life? He told me that his only interest is that I know the truth and that I allow that truth to set me free. You find that in the book of John, but I think if you look, you'll find it carved in your own heart. To know the truth. So, of course, the big question then becomes, just know the truth? That's all Jesus wants, is for me to know the truth and allow that truth to set me free? It means that it's important, especially as we're walking through this Holy Week now. Spend as much time as you can getting clarity on what is the truth for you. I'm going to share with you my truth here in a few minutes, but that is not what's important. What's important is that you and I take the time to figure out what we really believe is true for us, again, and that we do our best to live in alignment or in integrity with that. So I can't tell you what the truth is. I can only tell you my experience of the truth. But what I find is that if I share that with you, and we share it with each other, which is the value of spiritual community like we have here, our observations and our experience of this truth, which really is beyond intellectual explanation, but it becomes clearer to us as we share with each other. Now, I'm not talking about, this is what I think is true, and if you're really intelligent and if you're as spiritual as I think you are, you're going to agree with me. And don't you know we get really caught up on that, don't we? It's like, this is not about winning converts. This is not about convincing other people that my truth is better than yours. It's not childish. It's very mature. This is my truth. Now, let me express it to you, and then you express your truth to me, and without getting into a state of conflict here, we're going to discover that when we mix our two understandings of truth, some kind of expansion occurs. And we get something bigger than we had if we were just at home contemplating it by ourselves. So that's a recommendation for you to continue attending and participating and investing in Unity Village Chapel. Because that's the value of this. It's not that we expect you to show up at church. We just know what happens if you do get together with like-minded people and you have these kinds of conversations. So here's what I think the truth is. I'll try to be as succinct as I possibly can. I think that in every one of us, there are two different natures. Two different natures. There's an authentic nature and there's an inauthentic nature. Neither one of them is good, bad, right, or wrong. It's just one of them is authentic, one of them is the real you, and the other is an imposter. And most of us have been walking around all our lives as imposters. We've been trying to be something that we are not. And we're trying to do that because we were encouraged by external authorities that what we were was not enough, it was insufficient, it was not going to cut it. So we had to be something else, and we were given all of these models and ideas. Oh, be this, be that, be that, be this. Instead of just realizing there's an authenticity within you. That authenticity embraces concepts like peace, like love, like joy, like harmony, like compassion, like understanding. All of those words bubbling and boiling down to one single word, loving. Your authentic nature is loving. In Unity, we refer to that authentic nature as the Christ, not to be confused with the man who lived 2,000 years ago, but with a state of consciousness. And in this case, your authentic state of consciousness, I believe. Again, take it or leave it. I'm just sharing. And hopefully you'll give this some thought as this Holy Week unfolds before you. We also have an external, I'll say an externalized nature, an inauthentic nature. It's comprised of inauthentic energy. It's comprised of energy that creates an inauthentic experience, or what that song was singing about, the illusion, the appearances. And your preoccupation with one or the other, your preoccupation with your Christed nature, your authentic nature, or your preoccupation with your egoic nature, your inauthentic nature, whatever you're preoccupied with, whatever you're giving the most attention to, if you can't pull yourself away from the news because it's so compelling, you're preoccupied, not good, bad, right, or wrong, just preoccupied over here in this experience, this external experience, as opposed to the internal, authentic experience that we would call in Unity your Christ nature. And all of that bubbles down to fearfulness. So you have a loving nature, your authentic nature, and you have a fearful nature. And believe me, what most of us have imagined ourselves to be is worthy of fear, because we've created some pretty fearful characters in our minds as to who we think we are in this inauthenticity. So Easter is the season to come back into alignment with authenticity, and I believe this is why Jesus Christ showed up on this planet. Now, I think it was 3-4 weeks ago, my granddaughter, Ash, came to visit me, and we paid a visit to a store. So I'm about to share with you a retail revelation. And here it is. The store shall remain unnamed, and you'll understand why in just a moment. We went to a store. We were walking around shopping. They had signs almost on every aisle that said, anything in the store that's regular price, you can pick out one thing and you can have it for 40% off. That's a big, substantial savings. So we're shopping around, and Ash finds a book that she really wants. It's like $25, and I said, let's get that with the 40% off sale, and it'll be a real deal, and it's something you want. So we got that and a few other things. We're in the checkout line, and this lady's ringing everything up, and I hold up the book, and I said, this is what we'd like the 40% off on, because it was the most expensive thing we had. And the lady said, oh, you can't have 40% off of that book. Now, understand that I'm a good Unity student, minister, so I'm just smiling at her all the while going, you're just beautiful, you're the Christ. And I said, and I'm not holding this against you. I just want you to know that the sign didn't say that anything was excluded unless it was already discounted. And she said, oh, well, you need to look at the coupon because it will tell you that books are not included. Anything in the store except books. And I said, well, I don't have the coupon, and I'm still maintaining my Christ composure here, okay? I don't have the coupon. God love you. God love you. So I never saw this tiny print. And I'm telling you that I believe your signs are false advertising. She just steps across that counter and she says, if you have a complaint, you need to call 1-800 blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, I'm saying goodbye to my authentic nature here. I feel it happening. I'm going right over here to inauthenticity. Let's see, I'm in a church, I'm speaking. I'm angry. I'm angry. And it took me a long time to figure that out, what had happened. Even after all these years of working with this concept, it happens, doesn't it? It's like you've had so many years of conditioning in that inauthenticity, it'll leap right up out of the internal closet of your mind and it'll surprise you. Those are the moments when, as soon as you can, and sometimes it'll happen right there on the spot. With me, it didn't happen for at least several hours later, where I was able to take a breath and say, okay, that was me reacting. And what I should have done is gone back into the store then and said, I just want to thank you for making me aware of anger and rage that lived inside of me that hitherto I've been completely unaware of. So I get the best revelations when I am in retail environments. Don't you sometimes? Ever had people step in front of you in line or, 10 items limit, and there's the lady in front of you or the man with a shopping cart filled with hundreds of items, and you just have to breathe, you see, and really realize these are the opportunities for us to realize the residual inauthenticity that still dwells within us. So what kind of experience do you want for Easter? Authentic or inauthentic? What kind of an experience do you want as you live your life? What kind of experience do I want? And I believe it's possible during this Holy Week, at least to do our best. Yeah, there'll be those moments when we get caught up in the external drama. But to do our best to bring ourselves back to center, to emulate the one that we celebrate, to emulate the one that we celebrate. You could be, and I would only say this in a unity church, nowhere else. You could be the second coming of Christ. You. Who else is going to do it? We've been waiting 2,000 years for something to descend from the heavens and change the situations that we find ourselves in daily existence. But I'm telling you, it could be you. It could be your decision. It could be your commitment to say, I'm not going to buy into that inauthenticity anymore. I'm going to cross it out, which is our unity understanding of what crucifixion is all about. I'm going to cross it out, which is simply to release it. Let it go. Don't hold on to it. Don't invest in it. If you find yourself justifying your anger or your rage, let that be your reminder that you're going down an inauthentic road, and you have the option of being authentic. You have the option of being the Christ. You have the option of being the second coming of this consciousness that has the power, not only at Easter, not only during Holy Week, but every instant of your life to change the world. God bless you.